He's in the middle of our image for the YouTube viewers. Tidjane Salaun, who we only saw in 3 games, only played 19 minutes, averages of 9 points, 7 rebounds across his time. He didn't have a steal. He didn't have a block. He averaged 0.7 turnovers per game, 2 fouls per game. Shot 10% from 3. He only hit, I think, one of them in the end, and only shot 42% from the floor. So not exactly an efficient bit of play. It was kind of a stop-start thing. He had this injury. He wasn't practicing. I've talked about this. He was playing in America for the first time, playing with an NBA basketball for the first time, playing with an NBA three-point line for the first time, probably being coached in English for the first time, and he didn't even get to practice all the time because of this injury. So, like, he really was set up to fail, in my opinion. And I think he did some failing, and he did some succeeding, and it was kind of mixed enough that I probably kind of like would grade it as a C+, B-, something in there. Not a great situation for him, but I thought he did okay.
Yeah, I think I'd be in the C range too if I had to give it a grade. I think what I learned most was that his motor and intensity and physicality and just how he gets up and down the court, how quickly he can cover the floor in transition and how much he hustles, that's going to translate immediately.
Yes.
The only question is whether or not he has like the swing skills that are going to get him in the rotation. Like shooting probably is the easiest one to look at. I think interior finishing, like cutting, transition play will help him a little bit, but I think he still probably has some areas to improve, especially like with the ball in his hands in that regard. Like right now, it kind of seems like he can just kind of catch and go up the finish, and that's most of what he does right now. He's not super versatile as a finisher right now. If he can add to that or become like a marginally better shooter or more consistent shooter than what we saw from him last year with Cholet, I think that'll be like what gets him in the rotation. But he could easily make like an impact in a short burst just with his motor and his hustle right now. And in the G League especially, that's going to translate really well, which I think he'll be in plenty of situations to do that early on. So very, very, I think the positives were very positive, and the things that he needs to work on are what we already knew, which to me is a good thing. So can just keep building on it and see what happens as the season develops.
Yeah, I think, look, defensively, you could clip up probably 5 or 6 possessions defensively, and he looks like a serious disruptor. Like, he just has the ability to, a little bit like PJ Tucker, and I've used this comp before, he can take the space away from a player quicker than like your average NBA player. Like, just like someone thinks you're getting a shot away, and all of a sudden, like, Salaun is there, and he's contesting it way closer than you thought, and he disrupts guys. And they don't show up as blocks, but there was definitely 3 or 4 moments where his quickness and size impacted guys massively taking shots. There was also, I think, the time that he poked the ball away on like a post up and caused a turnover. So I definitely think like there's some defensive flashes. Equally, there was, I think, 3 or 4 times that he was guarding the ball in transition and guys drove at him and he fouled for and ones. And like he's going to have to learn that NBA whistle pretty quick, because in the NBA, people are going to go right at him, and he needs to be able to slide and defend without fouling. And it's not even like he's leaving his feet trying to block these. This is something I noticed. He doesn't leave his feet to block a shot as he slides with like a drive to the rim. He just tries to stay big, which like I understand, but if you're fouling people and you're not jumping, like at some point, I think that's why he got, I think it was like 0.3 blocks per game last year, standing at 6'10" with a 7'1" wingspan, which we always said was weird. But he just doesn't really try to block shots. I think he tries to play position. And like, I don't know if you can teach someone to do that now, because like so much is this about timing. But I do have some concerns a little bit about some of his kind of like on-ball defense in semi-transition. But there is plenty of time for him to try and work that out.
His fouling is so weird to me, because like I don't think you would describe him as an undisciplined defender, which is typically the label that you would give to a player that fouls a lot, especially like a young one, is, oh, he just needs to clean up like his technique and, you know, be more disciplined on that end, and eventually the fouling will diminish. He's not really like undisciplined. Like he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't leave his feet to block shots and just get guys like with easy up fakes where they just flail and throw the ball up. It's an easy 2 shots. Like he doesn't do that. He doesn't like reach at ball handlers and just get like fouls on the perimeter that are like ticky tack and easy to avoid. Like it's just so strange. Like it's like he has like a brand of like athleticism that's more common in like football almost, where he's like so powerful and explosive in short bursts, and he doesn't like have the experience at this level to control it, that he ends up just being like almost too physical, I guess would be the way to put it, and fouls or something, and or just doesn't know like
it's
the
just
limits of his
inconsistent.
physicality.
That's the word.
Yeah,
it comes and goes.
Exactly.
I have loads of notes where you can go and be like, yeah, really good defensive possession, and then there's another one where like you just got blown by or like like fouled guys stupid, and I guess that's like young players are inconsistent, so I guess that shouldn't be a surprise to us.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if the flashes are there, like that's obviously what Charlotte's looking at and being like, this is what we're building off of. This is why we like him. And there were plenty of those that for the same exact types of things that Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have spoken really highly of in regards to Tidjane since they drafted him, with his competitive spirit, his motor, his ability to make an impact on both ends of the court.
And he is committed to learning English. Interesting, again, little sneak peek here for our interview. We set up the interview with Mark Benaki from Hornets and Heartbreak, who speaks fluent French. And we were going to do the interview in French for Tidjane. We thought that'd be like, it'll be easy for him to communicate his points. And Tidjane basically actually said, actually, I want to practice my English. I want to get better. Do you mind if we do it in English? Because like, you know, and he took the harder road. He chose to do that because, you know, it's like right for him long term. And that's probably part of why they like him, right? He's choosing to make things difficult for him because he knows in the long run it'll work out for him. And if he has that approach to player development too, that's good. Offensively, a few notes from me. Look, has really interesting coast-to-coast ability, like the size and speed and coordination. It is an adventure when he dribbles the ball. I can't lie. It looks mechanical. It looks like he's not dribbled the ball before at times. And I think there's a couple of times where he did it against the defense that was too set or too locked in on him. Like had some bad turnovers in transition, kind of getting crowded out, a little bit Kai Jones-esque. But equally, then he shows the flashes where it works again. So it's like it's that inconsistent. Sometimes it works great, but then he needs to know, it's not really on here. I need to pull up, and we need to get into some offense. So that will come, but some definitely interesting things there. Fumbly hands again, like a little bit Bismack Biyombo-esque at times. Loose balls that kind of came straight to him, or passes that came straight to him. And he just like was not able to corral the ball. That is a little bit of a concern. Guys who aren't super high skill and struggle to catch balls, not a great combination. That is something I'm looking at to try and improve going forward. Shot off the dribble is tough. I thought it would be. I did a big shooting deep dive on my Twitter account. You can go find it. His 1-3 he made was a pure catch and shoot, which he shot 41% on last year. Off the dribble, he shot, I think, under 34%. And like some of his misses were pretty big misses. So I think he needs to simplify that shot diet, especially from beyond the arc. And then the last thing, and on a positive one, super active on the offensive glass. Averaged 3 offensive rebounds per game, which for like a power forward playing 19 minutes per game is absolutely crazy. To put that in perspective, Jake Stevens, who played way more minutes, started at the 5. He averaged just over 1.5 offensive rebounds per game. So that, like you say, that activity and energy, that definitely showed up on the offensive glass where he was getting in the mix all sorts of times. And I think that could probably actually be one of his elite skills, is his offensive rebounding, which isn't super sexy, but is something, it just gives you a level of physicality. And it's, a good thing to have.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I literally had that as the top stat in my Salaun notes. I would bet that if you put that into like a rebounding percentage and then took out the guys that only played like 1 or 2 games or didn't play enough minutes, he would have one of the highest offensive rebounding percentages in all of Summer League. Like, that is so impressive for a guy his age that didn't play like a ton of super high level basketball last year, or hasn't been somebody that, like you said, he's just coming over and playing American basketball for the first time. And he fit in a way that translates to the NBA and translates to winning at the NBA, like in offensive rebounding and like deflections and just general activity on the court immediately. Like those types of things are, like you said, not sexy or like things that pop off the stat page or whatever, but they help your teams win, and coaches like players that help their teams win. So he's got a couple of things that could really like put him on the edge of the rotation, even if his skill level or his polish in general is not all the way there yet.
Yeah, I don't think Salaun is ever going to be an aesthetically pleasing basketball player. I think it's going to look...
That's probably a good way to put it, yeah.
I think it's going to look awkward. It's going to look a little bit, uncomfortable at times, but like equally, I just think he's going to probably find a way to be like impact the game through his approach and energy and athleticism and size. I do still feel really strongly that they've drafted a role player. Like this is someone who cannot dribble, cannot really pass. He is like not a interior real scorer in the half court. This is a complementary role player, energy hustle guy, which at 6 is kind of rich for me. That's why I didn't have him in my top 10 in my draft rankings. But maybe that is just what he is at the moment, and he can grow to be more than that. And that's probably what they're banking on. Like I would say at a time, I don't want to use this, but like Kawhi Leonard was drafted as a like defensive first like guy who was like relatively not super high feel, and he grew those other areas of his game. And that's probably what they're hoping for with Tidjane Salaun. I personally don't see it. I think he's probably just going to be like at his peak an excellent role player. And that's probably like good in the draft if he can reach that peak. The floor's still pretty scary. If he does not make progress, he's not an NBA player.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I mean, I myself, I had him 21st on my big board. So in the moment, that was not obviously the pick that I would have made or the pick that you would have made, but he does have like an appealing skill set in many ways that, like I've said a couple times, translate to winning at the NBA level. And even if you get an excellent role player, there's something to be said for just hitting on your pick, even if it's high. You want to maximize that pick slot, but if you hit on it, it's better than just like making an upside swing and having someone that like falls out of the NBA, which certainly could happen to Tidjane Salaun as well. Nobody is immune from that, but at least right now he has some bankable skills that will appeal to his coaching staff and are the things that they've mentioned more than once when they're talking about him so far. So I think he's done enough to at least assuage some of the fears that many of his skeptics had pre-draft.
I'm super interested already to see him next year. You know, where he's able to have a proper full season in the NBA, have a proper training camp, not be injured. Got to be one of the most intriguing players in some league next season, like in the whole NBA, I would imagine. So yeah, shame we didn't get to see more of him. Like say 3 games, 19 minutes. Like because it's so intriguing every time he was on the court. You're just like glued, magnetic to him, right? But we're going to have plenty more time here, I think, in training camp, in preseason, and potentially the G League as well.